If you've been watching this channel for a couple years, then you might know that I have made a lot of R&B, alternative soul, melodic hip-hop on this channel before. I've done it a lot as an artist myself. However, I haven't visited the style in a little while, so what I wanted to do today was make a song in the style of artists like Partynextdoor, Bryson Tiller, Toliver, Dolla, Future's more melodic stuff. Any of those artists that have a very, very certain vibe where it's slower tempo, super vibey, really nice extended chords, super, super tuned, but, you know, kind of verby and eccentric vocals. We're going to look at all of that in this tutorial. But before we do, my name is Austin. You're watching Make Pop Music. We have videos like this every single Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you like this, make sure that you subscribe, like it, leave a comment down below. Also, if you want a chance to win any sample pack, preset pack, or MIDI pack from our website, makepopmusic.com, just leave a comment between now and January 27th. We will pick the winner live on our Instagram page next Tuesday or Wednesday, so go follow us over there to see if you won the giveaway. Let's go ahead and let's dive in because we have a lot to cover. I'm going to give you guys a fair warning. I actually just filmed this entire tutorial putting all of this together. The entire thing was the most out of focus video I've ever seen in my entire life. I shot B-roll last week and forgot to swap it back onto autofocus, and so the manual focus was like this corner of this keyboard right here. It was atrocious. So I'm not going to be building it in real time, but we will go over everything, probably even in more detail than we would have if I did that. So thanks for bearing with me. It's my second time filming this. I'm going to lock in so I don't accidentally skip anything. So the first thing that I like to start with when I'm starting in this style is some kind of pad or key sound. There's this one that we have out of the works called So Subtle. If you use Serum, we have a bunch of preset packs. This is one that you could win if you leave a comment. But it's basically just a saw wave, a sine wave, and then this actually isn't in the preset. I just added this myself. It's just a 1 octave up saw, and everything is super filtered. We'll play like an extended chord. So we're focusing on 7th chords, just to add a little bit of that soul influence. So what is that? We have an F minor 7 to a C minor 7 to a D flat major 7. So we're gonna play those 3 chords on this preset. One thing that I will show you is a lot of the synths in this style are super drowned out. I'm using this thing called Underwater. It's a filter from Cubase. It's stock in Cubase 14. This is what it sounds like without it. It's essentially just a hard cutoff filter. If you turn resample on, it kind of gives the appearance that you've just like reduced a bit depth. We'll leave it like that, but we're gonna leave that for our main chords, and then to layer it over just to give us a little bit of extra ambience and texture and sauce, we're gonna use this pad called Wavy, and I'm gonna play the same exact chords. And again, we're using that same effect called Underwater. Without it, it's actually a bit brighter. It's got a lot of that phaser happening, which is really cool for that kind of Partynextdoor, Toliver sound. We add Underwater at like basically just over 1K, and it kind of gets rid of a lot of that top end. It's similar to what 40 used to do in a lot of the old Drake songs, where he would pull the bit depth down and he would take it from like 24-bit to, I want to say he was doing like 8-bit or something like that, or dropping the sample rate, and it would essentially just eliminate all the high end. So we're using those for our main 2 key sounds. And then I just have this extra drowned out pad. This is just a sample that I found. Here's what it sounds like with nothing on it. I'm popping a flanger on here using the Arturia flanger. This is gonna spread everything out, kind of give it that phasey, flangy sound. Using a lot of modulation is really key in this style. And then again, this Underwater filter is just getting abused today. We have this at like 1.3. And you can hear how much vibier that makes it. It's night and day different. And you can automate that as the song plays if you want to. And then the last thing is just kind of like a little melodic loop. It's tucked way in the background, but it's nice to have something that has a little bit more movement. So this is what this sounds like. I didn't even put anything on it. Basically just found a little loop and sample that I liked, chopped it up, pitched it around a little bit, added some EQ, and that kind of creates the synth bed for what will be the verse. Super wide, super drowned out. We're going to thicken it up with a bass. So a big kind of Reese bass pad, filtered out saw bass, huge for this genre. I'll go an octave lower. This is one called the Purest Reese. This is out of our pack called Lush. It sounds really, really nice. Essentially, it's a sine wave down here doing the low end, and then we have a saw wave that has a little bit of bending that's basically just at 9, so it's detuned to giving you that width. And then we have a saw wave right here that's an octave up, just giving you some extra texture. And once we play that with everything, it gives us a nice little low end. That's pretty much what we have for like most of the ambient stuff happening. We will pull in some drums here. So for drums in this style, I'm using basically just signature trap drums. I got these out of our pack called The Works out of the hip hop folder. So we have this kick right here. It's just called Chase. It was the one that I used in Amy by Chase Atlantic. And then I'm layering that up with this kind of boom bappy kick. And this is pitched down 5 semitones just so they kind of match. And I have a little bit of reverb on that boom bap kick. That's what it's without. That's what it is with. And then I'm just filtering out everything under 150 hertz just because I don't want that low end to start phasing. But it gives you that nice stompy sample. And then same thing, snare. I have the brick snare tuned down 7 semitones. Here's what it sounds like normal. Here's what it sounds like pitched. And then I'm layering it with this crackle snare. Pitched down 9, and again, pretty fat reverb on it. And it just acts as kind of a more ambient sample. You don't have to have that. You could easily play all of that without it. But once you mix that with some bass and some synths, at this tempo with all the drums pitched down, it's almost feeling like chopped and screwed, which is a big thing that you hear in like a Partynextdoor sound. So it's feeling pretty good. One thing I will say is this main bass is sidechained to the kick. So I'm using Kickstarter on the bass channel, and then I have the main kick as a trigger. So every time that kick hits, anything below 143 hertz is getting ducked. So that's what we have for our main drums. Let's go ahead and listen to these hi-hats. I'm actually using a sampler tracking Cubase. So I just drug in the lean closed hat from The Works as well. I think all of the drums are from our pack The Works just because there's a crazy hip-hop folder in there. And there's not really any extra mixing happening. I didn't use Orion on this one, like nothing. This is just straight out of the pack. And I'm playing this on a sampler, so as I play keys, it'll kind of pitch it. So I'm just kind of, MIDIing that in there. And then I just offset that with an open hat on the right side. And that's most of it. The last thing that I did was there's kind of always some cool filtered percussion in a lot of these styles. So I made my own little patch right here. It's just a sine wave, and I'm doing a lot of compression, a lot of distortion, and some reverb and filtering. And essentially you can play it like you would toms. So you can kind of play it. Here's what it sounds like with nothing else on it. Just straight out of Serum. It's essentially just acting as like what a tom would be on an 808 machine. And then I'm processing that with Infiltrator. I'm just using this preset to add a little bit of extra movement. And then a little bit of reverb, make it super spacey. And then of course, we want that filtered. And as we play it with everything, I'll probably get rid of some of that low end. There we go. As we play it with everything, it has a little melody to it, so it just makes the drums feel a little bit more melodic. And to be honest, for a lot of those artists, that is most of the instrumental. A lot of them come from the hip hop world, so it's not going to be layers on layers on layers. There might be parts of the song where there's ear candy, but mostly it's a nice chord progression, some ambience, maybe a melody, and then drums that really, really hit hard, and a bass that takes up as much room as possible. Where the real part of this tutorial is coming in is more so the vocal production, right? So let's take a listen. The first thing that I want to show you are these oohs. Let me take everything off of them just so you can hear how they were tracked. There is an ooh on the left side and there's an ooh on the right side, and they're each doing different notes. So this is going to be pitchy before I turn AutoTune on, but here we go. And I didn't care about tracking it super hard because I was throwing AutoTune anyway. We'll go over the main vocal chain later, but all you need to know right now is this AutoTune, a lot of compression, and then there's this vocal doubler from 910 from Eventide. Just adds a little bit of spread, adds a little bit of extra ambience, and then quite a big 4-second reverb at 33% wet. And it's the same chain on both sides. They're panned about 65% left and right. I didn't want them wide panned because it's a little disorienting. But the key is that each one of these is singing different notes, so you can hear that. And that's what gives you that super melodic Partynextdoor, Don Toliver, Dolla sign, kind of ambient bed. So those oohs and ahs happen throughout the entire thing, just as kind of a bed. And then let's talk about the actual main vocal. So this is going to be a big bulk of this tutorial. We have a lot of questions. How do you do vocals like Partynextdoor or Don Toliver or Travis Scott or Future? A lot of them are kind of the same basis. So let's talk about my vocal chain coming in. I'm using a Sony C800G, which is what a lot of these artists will use in the studio. They also use a lot of the Telefunken 251, the Neumann U87. Essentially, you're going to want a mic that is a little bit more controlled in the lower mids and mids, so like that 200 to 600. You don't want a lot of that boominess. You do want it to be pretty forward in the high mids, and you want it to have a really nice silky top end. That's why I bought a C800, and it really, really, really does excel at this style. So my chain is C800 going into the Rupert Neve Designs Newton channel strip, no EQ, no silk saturation, going into an AudioScape 1176 Rev D. Just an 1176, doing about 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction. It is a medium attack, medium release on a 4:1 ratio, and then the AudioScape Opto compressor doing about 3 to 5 dB of gain reduction as well. No settings on that, really just hitting it. And so this is what the vocal sounds like with nothing on it, not even AutoTune.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted.
So it's not a bad vocal. We have a lot of that mid-range presence that we like. We have some top end. The first thing that I want to do is dial in AutoTune because this is the biggest key to the sound. For this song, for my voice, I'm in the key of the song and I'm at 5 for the retune speed. If you want it to feel like Future or Travis Scott, you could go 0 or 1. If you want it to feel more subtle like a Bryson Tiller, you could go 15. If you're looking for that kind of Don Toliver, Beam, Partynextdoor, you're probably going to be between like 5 and 10. So that's what I'm doing for this.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted.
So I'm tuning it pretty hard. I will also say a big key to this is if you have the ability to track with monitoring AutoTune, it really does help how you write these melodies and how you write these flows, because there's a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have done if I wasn't monitoring with AutoTune. So if you don't have a universal audio interface with their console and you can't use AutoTune as an insert in whatever console you're using, like I have Total Mix, I can't use tuning in here. However, what you can do is on my vocal chain, all I have to do is basically record at a pretty low buffer rate and then use something like AutoTune Artist or AutoTune Access, set the retune speed fast to the key of the song. So when I monitor into this, it's basically me singing with a little bit of AutoTune, a little bit of compression, and a little bit of reverb. That really does help how you sing it and perform it, but nothing was printed on there. So AutoTune's going first in the chain. The next thing that I'm doing is quite a bit of extra compression, just like 3 to 5 dB. The vocal's gonna get a little bit louder here, so here's your fair warning, but I'm just using this as kind of a level boost as well.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
I'm going to do my last little bit of compression with the Renaissance compressor. This is super big in the hip-hop community. It's a really nice, clean compressor to really squeeze everything without getting a lot of that extra low-mid bloom that we don't really want. So here's my settings for this.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
Now it's time to start thinning this out because it's a little bit boomy. So we're doing some mid sculpting right here around 200, 270, 400. This is that area. If we listen.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
It can really just eat up a lot of space in the mix. I don't really prefer that. I'm boosting a little bit of this just to push the vocal more forward. And then I'm just controlling some of the kind of resonance up here. These settings will change depending on your mic and your voice. Don't copy them one-to-one. Just know that you're going to want to kind of control these low mids and these high mids right here, and everything else can kind of shine through. Here's what it sounds like with all that compression and EQ.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
Definitely getting closer. It sounds thin, but as we add reverb and stuff later, it'll thicken itself back up. Next thing, doing a little bit of DS. I'm just doing like 3 dB of reduction.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted.
And then the next thing is Pro MB. This is really just to, keep controlling those low mids when they become an issue, but not sucking all the life out of the vocal. And then this is a big tip, doing a big boost on the air, basically above like 9K. And then essentially allowing it to compress whenever any harsh words appear. This is what's going to give you that really silky top end that you hear in like Lil Baby, Don Toliver, Travis Scott, Future. That almost like overly compressed silk is just boosting it right here and then letting it compress.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
Now let's talk about the actual wet effects. There's just one more EQ right here that's mainly for volume, and then I'm doing like one more little cut just to get rid of some air. Let's move on to sends. The first one that I want to talk about is my parallel widening send. I've mentioned it on the channel probably 2 million times by now, but essentially it's just a Roland Dimension D.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
And then I'm just doing some mid-side EQ here to make space for the main vocal, make it super, shiny and silky on the sides. And let me show you what it sounds like if we boost this. So this is really where the difference of if you want Travis Scott versus Don Toliver versus Ty Dolla $ign versus Future is the stereo effect. Partynextdoor, right down the middle. There's not a lot of that happening at all on his vocals in most songs. Somebody like Beam or Don Toliver, it's going to be higher. So let me show you. Here's with nothing.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby.
I'll boost it.
Told you I wasn't one to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted.
If you want that super wide roboty sound, you could drive this to like -5, -6.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
And that'll kind of give you that more sizzly, wide, phasey sound that you would hear with like Beam, Don Toliver. I'm going to keep it down here closer to -20. Let's move on. Huge tip though for adding that width and not having a bunch of like stereo compatibility issues. The Dimension D is great. You could also use micro shift for it or just like a normal chorus plugin. But here is my main reverb for this style. Again, you can adjust the decay time depending on whatever you want to do for that specific song. For this one, I'm at 2 seconds. I'm doing a little bit of EQ. We're 100% wet because it is on a send. And then I always just do a little bit of extra band passing down here. And then we should be good to go. Hear this?
I wasn't one to play games with.
And then the only other one that we're using on this is the 8th note delay. So I have Echo Boy on an 8th note because we're at a super slow tempo. A quarter note basically feels like a normal half note. So feedback, like right here at, I don't know, what is that, like between 8 and 9 o'clock. Low cut is at 10 o'clock, high cut's at 10 o'clock, mixes at 100%. I'm using the Space Echo. It gives you a lot of that weird modulation that you hear in something like Don Toliver or like a Bryson Tiller delay throw. It's really nice to not just have like a really, really standard delay. And then here's what the vocal sounds like with all those wet effects.
I sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted.
You can really take it to the next level by doing like big delay and reverb throws on certain words, so it doesn't have to get too wet and too ambient. So that's what I'm doing here. I've just basically made a track where I can copy and paste certain words or phrases that I want to have a huge reverb on them. And then essentially I just have a reverb at 100% wet doing like 7.5 seconds of decay, and then filtering that out quite a bit with Pro Q. And then S1 is a cool tip that you can do on your reverb and delay throws. Maybe in the verse you want it to be a little bit more narrow. Maybe in the chorus you want it to be extra, extra wide. Maybe you want to automate it and like really give this binaural effect. S1 is really cool to kind of use on your throws just to really dial in where they're going to sit in terms of the stereo spread. But I'm just using that on words every now and then.
Want to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted. Made your bed.
I could probably shorten this a little bit. Let's go to like 5.5 seconds.
Do a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with.
And you can do the same thing with delays. So I have an eighth note right here that I'm just using on certain words and phrases as well. Basically an eighth note on the studio tape. Feedback is much higher on this than it is on the actual main send. And then I always like to have a little bit of reverb after my delay so the delay feels a little bit more natural. So I'm using vintage verb at like 28% wet, 2 seconds, doing some filtering, again, band passing the hell out of this one, and then still doing the S1 trick. I'm not really automating it for this tutorial, but they're all on my natural chain, so I just kept them there. And it really has a cool spacey effect.
Maybe I missed some signs, I was complacent. Maybe I missed some signs, I was complacent. We was one-on-one.
Like, that's a super big key to this kind of melodic hip-hop, alternative soul, kind of dark R&B. Throws like this are huge. That's really it. The only other thing that I do is my kind of classic trick to beef my own vocal up, which is the low-wide vocal. I'm essentially in AutoTune going down an entire octave. And then I have Decapitator doing a little bit of saturation. And then Doubler is really where I'm getting a lot of that width. This is just on the 4 voices. Again, I've talked about this probably 2 billion times. And then I'm de-essing it way too hard. I don't need any sibilance whatsoever. And then just using this to sculpt it out to fit into my mix. And that's pretty much it. Like, that's really everything that would go into a song with this style. Writing the vocals, I want it to go much more unstructured than I would on like a pop song. It's very train of thought. It's very melodic, but not super structured in terms of like an A section, a B section, a C section. It's really just singing. And that's a huge thing that you hear, especially in like Partynextdoor, Dolla Sign, even like Don Toliver a little bit, is that it feels like the artist just went in the booth and just started spitting. And that's kind of what I wanted on this. I didn't want it to feel too structured. In terms of the mastering chain, there's not too much to highlight. We're just doing gold clip, and normally it's only clipping like a little bit over a dB, basically just shaving off some of the kicks and snares. And then it's my normal chain. VBC red doing like a dB, 2 dB of gain reduction. Mix head adding a little bit of saturation on the Sherbangani preset that they have. And then same thing I've been doing on this channel for years. Lin MB, Pro L2. Not really doing anything too wild on here. And that really is most of the song. I don't really think there's any other stuff to highlight. The main key is that you just create a big musical bed, and then you have a vocal that is just so dialed in. So let's go ahead and let's take a listen so you can see how everything really came together.
Sent you a couple warning shots, baby. Told you I wasn't one to play games with. I don't give a fuck that you was wasted. Made your bed, now come lay. And then, baby girl, come and face it. Maybe I missed some signs, I was complacent. Maybe I missed some signs, I was complacent. We was one-on-one, I gave you peace of mind. Then you pulled the Prada sheets right over my eyes. Cut me down, cross me a couple times. Drug my name out through the city, caught me by surprise. Yeah, you can blame it on the lines you were checking, maybe, but I don't wanna hear. Yeah, you committed all the crimes, so just face it, baby, it's time to disappear. Time to disappear. Oh.
And that's pretty much everything that I would do for an alternative soul, dark R&B, melodic hip hop, whatever you want to call it. All those artists that I've been mentioning throughout the video. I think that that's kind of the formula. Of course, you can experiment. If you want to make pop, you can incorporate some of this into pop music. I think it's just so nice to have some of these techniques in your back pocket. Even if you wanted to make a song like Bieber, or if you wanted to make a song like, you know, the new Justin Timberlake album, you could do a lot of that just from this tutorial. So if you like this tutorial, please make sure that you show us some love by leaving a comment and leaving a like. If you want to subscribe, we do videos like this every single Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, so subscribe so you don't miss one. And then if you want a chance to win one of our sample packs, preset packs, or MIDI packs for free, including you could take home the works, which is what we used for 90% of this tutorial. You could take home Lush, you could take home Dark Pop, all amazing for this genre. Just leave a comment down below. We'll pick a winner at random on January 27th, and follow us on Instagram to see who won that. But other than that, that's going to do it for this tutorial. I'll see you guys next week with more content. Hope that you enjoyed this one. Much love. Peace.